Hey, this is Anthony Turi, and I appreciate you taking the time to check out my Wwise Implementation Reel using Unity's 3D Game Kit. This video will be focusing on my sound design and implementation for both the Chomper and Grenade Golem enemies. I began the implementation process by first generating a capture log using the Wwise Profiler. I then exported the capture log into Microsoft Excel and began to organize all assets by their event categories. All sounds were designed using a culmination of field recordings from my Zoom H6, an iPhone XR, a WA87R2, tons of serum patches, Omnisphere banks, and of course, sound libraries. The first enemy that Ellen encounters on her journey are the Chompers. These slimy little guys populate just about every part of the map, so it is essential to keep these player encounters engaging and never exhausting. This was achieved by using the dense clarity, clear density approach used in many modern games like Overwatch and The Last of Us Part 2. This approach creates a dynamic mix by emphasizing the most important sounds in response to specific in-game events. I began by first adjusting the playback limits of the Chomper sounds within Wwise. I limited the amount of sound instances per Chomper to 6 to assure that frequent game calls for their sound objects wouldn't pile up and create a muddy mix. I then offset the playback priority by -15 at the max distance, which is defined by the Chomper attenuation curve. This assures that the Chomper game calls would only be audible when they're an imminent threat. Finally, I sidechained the Chomper audio bus to our main character Ellen's footstep sounds using the Wwise meter. This effectively reduces the sound of Ellen's footsteps when she is in combat with the Chomper enemies, as determined by the Chomper combat level RTPC. Now, I'll go ahead and show some gameplay encounters with the Chomper enemies. The final part of the level features a boss encounter with the Grenade Golem. Dozens of Pro Tools sessions were used to design footsteps, vocalizations, ranged attack sounds, and everything in between. The bulk of the Grenade Golem's mechanical sounds were created using the sounds of a kitchen oven, a pool lighting tower, this basketball that lives in my trunk, and everything in this toolbox. The Grenade Golem's auxiliary sends were attached to a distance RTPC in order to automate the sends based on how near or far the player is from the boss. Because the Golem's grenade bounce animations are accompanied by electrical particles, I created a separate random container housing electrical static sounds that accompany each bounce. To add an extra layer of detail to the attenuation of the grenade bounces, I've attached the voice volume and voice low pass filter parameters to a distance RTPC that will only affect the electricity sounds. This allows me to reduce the electricity sound objects independently of the grenade bounces. Finally, a Golem Vox audio bus was created to provide more individualized control over vocal inflections. An LFO was used to modulate the mid-range frequencies of the Golem vocalizations. This allowed for even more tonal variety across damage intake sounds, death sounds, and any other lines of dialogue performed by the Grenade Golem. Finally, upon the Grenade Golem's defeat, a global stop all action begins the death sequence prior to playing the explosion sounds and death vocalizations. By doing so, this focuses the player's attention on the big finale. However, the only exceptions to this rule are the Chomper enemy sounds. Their events are still allowed to be called during the Golem's death so that the player can remain on their guard. And that wraps it up for my Wwise implementation reel using Unity's 3D game kit. Thank you for watching.